boogeyman is real, and you found him.
All right, you primitive screwheads, listen up.
What's blood for, if not for shedding?
I'm your number one fan.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Be afraid. Be very afraid.
7 days.
I am Dracula.
We have such sights to show you. Boy!
I said, I'm not gonna hurt you. I'm just gonna bash your brains.
I am the eater of worlds and of children.
What's in the fucking box?
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
One by one, we will take you.
Never get out of bed again!
You gotta be fucking kidding.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
Welcome, horror fans. It is Wednesday, just a little past 7 p.m. Central Time, and it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast, the only home for everything you ever were afraid of. And if you, dear horror fanatic, listening to us at the top of the week, remember, we do this live every preceding Wednesday right here on YouTube, so we hope to see you in the live chat. Come join us. This week, we are looking back at select horror films released May 5th through May 11th. Thank you all so much for joining us for what will surely be a bloody good time. I am JL, and with me is making his triumphant return is Aaron.
Yeah, it's me. It ain't Johnny. They're all like, oh, who's making him late this time? It's somebody that you're damn well going to wait for.
So I see you've got your new setup is looking amazing.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. So that's a full projector back there. It acts as a third monitor. I'm going to put some controls in so I can flip through it and stuff. And then
Nice.
Got some other options. But like everything on this side of the office rotated, but I also dropped in electrical and paint and almost died like 12 times.
I saw the construction photos that you were dropping while you were putting it all together, and it is top flight. Like, you got some really good shit in there. So, you know, when it's all said and done, and when you start producing your own content and like regularly, and the way I think you're going to be able to do like whatever you want, I think it's going to be amazing.
Yeah, I've got it's the most expensive lens I have, because this is a very narrow space. It's only 11 feet wide going down it, but I've got a 12 millimeter. So I can get a nice wide angle, and it's a corrective fisheye. So, you know, it brings it in as a fisheye, puts through lens, flattens it, so I can actually move the camera around, have some freedom. I'm not just at the desk. I can use a projector to mess around with some stuff, and I've got the whiteboard over there, and I figure out some pretty cool effects with a black light.
You get a multi-camera setup too. You can actually move around and adjust. Dude, you going fucking pro, man. I like it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I've got this. So I got a cheaper GoPro. The intent was to attach it to this, but it doesn't handle low light really well. So I've got my standard camera attached here, and I've got that what is it called? It's the Ninja 5, which lets me record at 4K continuously because my camera overheats. And I didn't have the money to go full blown upgrade, but it should be fun. I'm gonna try to get into some abandoned locations around here too.
Nice. Fucking love it. Very, very cool. I cannot wait. Like I said, I cannot wait to see what you start churning out. It's gonna look fantastic. So yeah, if for everybody out there, Aaron Reese is kicking ass. Are you still under Media Macabre?
I am for now. I may change the name. I ended up going into a bidding war for the domain for that, and somebody beat me, and they ran it up because I couldn't be there during the day, and I set my bid. I won't say how much it is just because it's money, but they beat me on it, and not by too much, and then jacked that thing up to like, I think they were asking $6,000 for it, and I'm like, because they know somebody wants it, so they're gonna price it high, and I'm like, I'll find something else.
See, we almost ran into that with the Week in Horror domain, because for the longest time we were running weekinhorror.net, and .nets just don't get the traffic that a .com does, and there was somebody out there. Actually, I know like who they were. Like it was some Yahoo down in in the middle of nowhere, South Texas, who owned the weekinhorror.com domain. And I was like, I want it. I give it to me or sell it to me or whatever. And this wouldn't respond until eventually. But I sat on top of it. I sat and I waited and I watched, until eventually it expired. And bam, I jumped on it immediately. Like the minute it was like, I guess their renewal didn't go through or whatever. But I was like, that's how we got weekinhorror.com. But I had to wait like 2 years to finally get my hands on it. So it took forever. It just, just patience.
Well, what's weird is so before it went up for bid, it was owned by a company they were doing books. And it was just, they didn't need a website. If they did, they needed one just for wholesalers because it was combinations of public domain horror short stories. And that's the sort of thing you sell in the discount section. So they didn't really need to be advertised in public. They just needed to get into the bookstores or on Amazon because Amazon will sell anything. But they only had it for like 3 or 4 months because it was parked before that. They had it for 3 or 4 months and then it went up and that's when that started. And there's a whole thing too with Instagram where I didn't verify soon enough and I lost the name and it's just like, yeah, because I didn't just completely miss the email amongst everything that's going on. So I'm just like, I don't know.
Getting that social media presence is so important these days. But eventually, if you stay on it, you'll probably be able to pick it up later. If they don't know what to do with it and they don't have a plan, they just want to grab it. Then sometimes you can just sit and wait, and eventually you can pick it up because they'll just lose interest. That's what happened for us. So, but for everybody out there listening right now, everybody listening to this later, just keep tabs on Aaron. Follow him on social media. You can find him through Week in Horror. Find him on YouTube. Whatever, and look for all that amazing stuff he's going to be putting together. It's awesome that you're back, and we have you back for this episode, and hopefully it'll be more as we speed. Can you believe this? We're already in May. There is less.
Remind me, dude.
Legit, including this episode. There are 19 more episodes left in this season.
Jesus. Yeah, dude, time is flying. I'm like, what the hell's going on?
So less than 20 left.
They tell you the older you get, the faster it goes, and it does. Like,
it's so true.
I'm just like, what the hell happened, man? I was 20, man.
And it's like, I started this when we started this. It was like 2019, and I look at it. I was like, and as each year of the series, because we get better. We get better. We get more. You get into a real. You get some real momentum going on. Scripts, you know what's going into a script. You know how to drop it. You know when to tell you. Watching the movies, and everything, and everything just moves so quickly. And we don't really need to do production meetings, pre-production meetings anymore because we're all on the same page, and all the media is already done. So you get really, really fast at it, and each year it gets progressively quicker. We wind up ripping through an entire season, which is 52 episodes. We wind up like this season right here has just gone by in a blink. And it was like, I was just starting it last September. Season 5, here we go, all the new artwork, and already we're like less than 20 episodes away from the end of season 5, which is just blows my mind that 5 years of this show has gone by this quick. So,
well, you telling me it's been almost a year since I've been on because it started out with just a string of bad luck as far as like stuff going on around my house, and I got some of that pushed back, and then I started in the office, and the main motivator was I was getting water on the floor in here badly when it rained, and there's some stuff I've got to do outside, but I pulled everything out, and I sealed the wall and the floor and the alcove back there. I put a barrier because someone was going through there, and it's like, if I am doing this, I am doing this right, and I'm putting it the way I want it. And that's why it took so long, because with my back, especially certain days, like push 2 hours and I'm done. But other days, I could maybe get out 8 and stuff. But it's never perfect, but I'm pretty happy with the way it is now.
Awesome. Fan-freaking-tastic. All right. So welcome back, and welcome everybody to the live chat. Give Aaron a huge welcome back. He's overcome a bunch, and now he is hanging with us for this episode, which is going to be an amazing episode tonight because it's one of those rare episodes where all 4 fucking movies are goddamn amazing. So legends across the board. This never happens. And I knew that if we had an episode come along like this, when I wrote the schedule out back in 2023, when I was writing, it was like summer of 2023, I was writing the schedule for 2024. When I was writing this schedule out, I came across this one. I was like, holy shit, this 1 week in May when these movies dropped, and I'm like, it's one of those rare ones. And I knew that if I couldn't get anybody to join me on this episode, then it was me. It wasn't the movies. It was me. I knew that. I knew it was me. But I'm glad that we're here. This is going to be amazing. Such amazing stuff to talk about. But first and foremost, let's get up that Patreon banner. There's all those amazing people down there who help us to make this show possible. We'd appreciate it. Thank you very much for your support. We love you so much for that. And jumping in there really quick, Left-Handed Jedi, thank you so much for the 10 gifted memberships to the Army of the Dead. Welcome all you new members. Please enjoy all of the cool emojis that we've made for you and the channel badges. So thank you so much. And let's see who we've got in the live chat tonight. Let me see. Case Cooper is here. Good to see you, bud. Just been hanging out. Angel Rivera as well. Says, what up? Sorry. Corrected, typo there. What up, Horror Fiends? Good to see you, Angel. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. Sarcasm as well says, I'm going to take the night off. Had to work really early this morning and need the rest. I'll catch the VOD in the morning. Love to everyone. See y'all next week. Thank you, Sarcasm. Appreciate that, bud. You rock. Travis Brown's hanging out. Says, evening, y'all. Just watched The Autopsy of Jane Doe with Joe Bob last Friday for the first time. What an interesting premise. The Autopsy of Jane Doe was phenomenal. I thought it was a brilliant little film, and I'm not a huge fan of Emil Hirsch just because of his, personal shit. I mean, I think he's a talented actor and he can do the job. I think there would be better people in that, but Brian Cox was off the fucking hook.
He always is.
Oh yeah,
master of the craft.
And knowing what the actress who played the Jane Doe, essentially played the witch who was being autopsied there, knowing the training that she had to go through in order to basically portray a dead body for the length of a film, where she's just on the slab in every scene, and to portray that effectively, because there's so many close-ups and you cannot give away, what's going on. It's just supposed to be a dead body. And the level of detail that went into that movie to make it both straight up horror and psychological manipulation horror was brilliant. I love it. I love everything. The way it was edited, the way it was paced, the way it was, the color grading in it, everything was magnificent. Cinematography was brilliant, and the acting was top notch. So love that movie. It'd be weird watching that on Joe Bob, because Joe Bob offers the commentary along those lines. But I think that's a movie that's best experienced itself.
Oh yeah, that is a prime example of doing, not monetarily, I don't know where the budget was, but as far as assets, like the space you're in, the number of people you're using, prime example of doing a lot with a very little. And it uses that, they say that, limits make you creative. There's a claustrophobic feel through the entire thing because they're not going anywhere. They've got to deal with this, and it just like I get pissed at movies that poorly portray witchcraft, whether it be satanic or pagan, and stuff that doesn't, like, they do possession, they suck at it. That one nailed it right down the line. It's just enough to make you curious because you never want to answer all the questions. You need some mystery. But it also had a nice flowing logic to it where it's not just like, this is scary. It happened for a reason, usually because they fucked up.
It's that unknown. It's that unknown lurking in the background. Like you were on the precipice of there are things that exist that are greater in this universe, and you had no conceptualization of it. And you were on the precipice of understanding that these things exist, but you can't hope to comprehend them in the short space of time that you have. You can only hope to glimpse them. And the glimpsing of that is terrifying. And the brilliance of that narrative in taking two characters working in a space, because it's not like the sterile antiseptic, like the Haunting of Hannah Grace. Okay, that's the same. It's an autopsy deal, which it's a woman working as a medical examiner, and that's very sterile. It's a professional deal. It's run by the state, so it's got, it's more medical than it is family. And so this movie, Autopsy of Jane Doe, it takes that family element where these two people are working in this space. It's small, it's confined, but there's a safety there. There's a grace to that. There's a familiarity to that. This is the safe space that they work in, and then turning that safe space where this is supposed to be a place of of reverence to those who have passed on, and that respect that we pass to them, you know, in taking care of their remains, then turns that into a place of horror. So flipping the script and that, taking the familiar and making it, and showing that you may feel familiar, but you're in the cave. The cave feels safe, but once you're trapped in there, there's no escape. And I loved that it flipped that on that. Using just light and sound was just brilliant.
And then that's the thing with being a mortician too. It's scary to everybody else. It's unusual. We don't encounter a lot. Well, for them, it's Wednesday. So, you know, this is normally a quiet place. There's not much going on, and that is actually becomes advantageous because it's that pregnant silence where it's like, what's coming next? But yeah, no, that movie did not let me down at all.
You're familiar with the sounds. It's like that familiarity you have in the space that you live in and that you work in. You know the sounds your space makes. But then when other sounds come up, you're instantly, you know, your hackles get up. You instantly on the defensive because that I don't recognize that. What is that? What is that noise? What's going on here? And then the uncertainty begins to roll. Oh, it's such a beautiful slow burn. Fucking love it. Yeah. So awesome, Travis Brown. I'm glad that you enjoyed that movie. Travis Brown says also this stream wants to be your sledgehammer. It absolutely does. We got a lot of hammer tonight. Fucking love it. Let me see. Who else we got here? Tang Whistle CPM's here. Good to see you, Tang. Thanks so much for being here. Says dun dun dun. Thank you, Tang. Joshua Lee as well says good evening, everyone. Good to see you, Joshua. Appreciate you hanging out tonight. I see as well as Cindy Sue says I'm here. Hi all. Good to see you, Cindy. Appreciate you being here. Let me see who else we got tonight. I gotta scroll. NA's hanging out. Good to see you, NA, one of our longest supporters of the channel. We appreciate that, bud. Says hi, everyone. Good to see you, NA. Ivy Gentry as well. Says, yeah, JL won't be so lonely. It's true. I was getting very lonely. I was, you know, handling shows. But, you know, I could do it. I pushed through, and now my friends have arrived. So, yay. And I'm gonna give them plenty of time to talk. I'm not gonna try and dominate the conversation where they're just sitting there going.
Yeah, that's on like JL's never met a monologue that he's afraid of.
I know, right? Rodent No Last Names here says, good news. They don't have to bleed me weekly to get my blood under control. No leeches either. That's good. I'm glad to hear you're on the up and up and you're on the mend, Rodent. Gabba to you, bud. Let me see. Yes, Aaron's hair has gone green. Yes, that's why he is the Oompa Loompa.
Yeah. I was going to work on the style on it too because I've got one. So it styles all to one side, so it's longer on this side going over, and one of them goes down nearly to my mouth. So, like this morning, I was showing my kids, like I combed it all down till I looked like a psychotic stalker, and I was like, "I'm just gonna go to your school like this." No,
that one doesn't kill you; simply makes you stranger. Oh, let's see. Sally Skellington is here. Good to see you, Sally. Says, "Hey, folks, thanks so much for being here tonight. Appreciate seeing you." Left-handed Jedi as well. Thank you so much for the gifted memberships. Yeah. And Left-Handed Jedi, yes, thank you so much for the gifted memberships, as well as, I think, what was this? NA gifted 10 memberships to the Army of the Dead. Thank you so much, NA. Appreciate that, bud. You rock. All right. Who else? Make sure I got everybody because I got to say it. Taipan23 says, representing the inner circle of the SC group. Good to see you, Taipan. Appreciate you being here, hanging out with us tonight. Doctor Who Design as well says, hello. Good to see you. All right, and I think I saw one more person. Javier Hara is here. It says, Jello. Good to see you, Javier. So, we have got an amazing fucking show tonight. But first, before we dive into our selections, there's a couple of things that popped up in the feed that I think people should be aware of, and I can get Aaron's kind of thoughts on this as well, because this goes back. So, one of these goes back to our childhood when we were growing up. The other one is just kind of like an update. So the first big thing coming out from Damien Leone's camp, Terrifier 3 has an official release date of October 11th, 2024. So October 11th, we will get the Christmas-themed new entry in the Terrifier series, supposedly the last one they're going to make to close out the Terrifier trilogy. And it'll be Christmas-themed, released just before Halloween. So October 11th, 2024, Terrifier 3. I'm looking forward to it because I love Terrifier 2. What about you?
I enjoyed them. They're not dead up my camp, but they're one of those that, like, it's not a popcorn movie.
No.
Because it's fucked up, but it's not a deep thinker. It's one of those that you just sit down with a beer with. So it's one of those. And the thing that kills me is it's like, because it's in that middle ground, I don't want to, like, fall asleep during it, which I after everything every day, if I put on a movie that doesn't have me like right on the edge, I might fall asleep, and that's just I'm not gonna do it to that, because that's the thing too, is like normal stuff after working security and loss prevention, like, and then working maintenance stuff. I mean, like, it doesn't bug me. The stuff that bugs me worse is like practical effects that are food, and I'm like, that's not sanitary. But like, I mean, when I was working property management, I had to go out and pressure wash human shit off sidewalks. Like, the toilet overflowed, and I squeegeed it out. I got the water flowing again, and they were supposed to clean it up, and they're like all staring at a turd on the floor that they're terrified of. I'm like, God damn it. And I got a glove on him, just right in the toilet. I'm like, I will never be the same again.
Working in a convenience store that I worked because the convenience store chain that I worked for like 7 years, I ran into my own fair share of like horrific shit in the bathrooms as well. And I mean that both literally and figuratively. So, but I totally get that. But given Terrifier, and obviously the centerpiece of that one was the upside down was the bifurcation with the rusty hacksaw.
Yeah.
That was beyond insane. But then but then Damien was able to one up that, obviously, with actually, I think, a couple of sequences in Terrifier 2. Predominantly the one in the bedroom when he literally picks that girl apart like a freaking chicken. And just like, whatever. And then the mom comes in, she's still fucking alive. It's like, what the shit? She's absolutely insane. I have no idea what Damien has in store for us, or even David Thornton, who plays Art the Clown. I have no idea what they have in store for us for Terrifier 3, but I'm excited about it. So we have an official release date, October 11th, 2024. So be on the lookout for that to hit theaters. It's going to be, I have no doubt it's going to be fucking insane. Damien has said multiple times that it goes not just a one-up, but it is like an order of magnitude more crazy than Terrifier 2. So I don't know how that's possible, but
it did what I think that Hostel and the sequels set out to do, where you've got these horrifying sights and stuff, but with Hostel, I don't know, just like the plot line in between never did it for me. It's like, because there's this attitude of over the top about the kills, and it's like every time you kind of want them to live, but you also kind of want to see what he's gonna do. And the plot feeds really well from event to event in Terrifier series, whereas Hostel, I mean, they've got good spectacle, but the in-between just never did it for me.
Gotcha. Oh, Cindy Sue says, personally, I think Aaron Reese looks like Jean-Baptiste in The Fifth Element. Jean-Baptiste Emmanuel Zorg. You just see that plastic deal over the other side.
Well, I can get like down probably like over here. Like, I've got gel in it right now, so it's not going to do too well. But yeah, I can bring it down there.
Oh, Gary Oldman was amazing. I love that one. And the next one up, this goes back to our childhood, which I found really, really fascinating. Oh, yeah, and by the way, for those in the live chat, if you haven't seen Terrifier films, the Terrifier 2, definitely check those out. You can also check out the prequel stuff that was put out that, pretty much started Art the Clown, which was like All Hallows Eve and All Hallows Eve 2. You can check those out. But if you haven't seen the first two films, Terrifier 2, definitely check them out. But if you have, let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com if you're going to be there to see Terrifier 3 when it drops. If you're excited about it, if you're not, did Terrifier 2 put you off your lunch? I have to see. It's kind of like Human Centipede. Human Centipede was awful, but still not the worst shit I've ever seen. But because of Human Centipede and because Tom Six, because after I met Tom Six, I said, I have to watch everything this man puts out because he's a fucking lunatic. But Tom Six, dropped Human Centipede 2. I had to watch it. And then he said Human Centipede 3 was going to be even worse than that. It's just, can they actually do it? Can they go that extreme? And Damien says he can, so I'm all for it.
You can see where it goes with all the slashers and stuff, like from the 80s. It just, if you're not careful, it just falls apart and eventually dies off. And that's the thing too, is to keep it going, you have to go supernatural. Like, right. That's why in Friday the 13th, they went with Jason instead of the mom. obviously with Freddy, he's supernatural stuff, but you can't keep killing them again and again unless there's supernatural element. And they did it with Terrifier, but that's not leveraged for him to kill most of the time. He's just killing like a normal person, and then when he fucks up and gets killed, he comes back and just goes right back to it.
I'm shocked. I don't know where they're gonna go. It's especially after the ending of Terrifier 2. I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it. It's fucking bonkers. It is gonzo, so definitely go check that out. But let us know in the comments below or at weekinhorror@gmail.com if you're looking forward to Terrifier 3. You know, I know I am. So
I recommend a Tractor Supply store.
So the second thing that I found this really interesting because obviously in this day and age, there is no end to the reboots or the prequels or the sequels or the remakes or the requels or the continuations, and you know, studios just glomming on shit that already existed and and trying to redo it some vein. More often than not, it's soulless bullshit like Firestarter and Pet Sematary and whatever. And sometimes the public, is able to like raise their fist to go like absolutely not, which is why I don't think we're going to be getting a Christine remake. So and other films like that. But Faces of Death is getting a remake.
So the problem with that,
it doesn't even like what?
It doesn't work when there's an internet. Faces of Death was so fascinating to us because that was the one that like you weren't allowed to have, and it was hard to find. And if you finally found it, you all argued whether it was real or not. And there was rumor stuff on the internet. It's at easy access. It's fake. Even if they managed to pull a little bit of a scam and convince people it was real, it wouldn't last long. I mean,
well, if I remember correctly, some of the stuff Faces of Death showed was real, but most of it was fake. It was like interspersed. So, but people didn't know that, because legitimate footage of that you can actually tell it's not like blurry or is whatever. But legitimate footage of that. Of stuff like that does exist, but it was few and far between. So they interspliced it with a bunch of made up shit to kind of like to fledge it out into a full video series. And so, but you're right, with the internet, with the advent of the internet, you can look this shit up immediately. What's real, what's not fake. Not to mention, practical effects versus CGI. We're so immersed into this point. Like, what is it? So that's my curiosity. That's my question. The internet kind of ruined the mystique of films like that because those rest on people not being able to communicate about what they know as readily as the internet has allowed us to do. That was all word of mouth. That was phone calls. That was people still writing physical letters at the time. That was meeting at the water cooler to talk about shit, or meeting at school to talk to your horror fan friends about what you just said. Oh, I got a copy of it. I found a copy, and yeah. So, and Anna says I watched some of this Face of Death when I was 13, 14 years old. This is like when we were kids, and all of a sudden they're bringing it back. So the appeal of the original can't exist anymore. So ultimately, what is it just, I feel it's just cash grab on the name.
They're going to have to go meta or something, or they're going to have to go like VHS where they attach a plot to it because they can't there are relatively few people that will just watch practical effects of people being killed executed. I wouldn't even watch it for that long unless it was a challenge to be like figure out how they did it. I would pretty much demand that I see some of how they accomplish this,
right?
Just for the practical knowledge. But I see it being something like similar to VHS, maybe, where there's a story to each one. Because it's got to be something completely different. Because talking about school, there were stories where like everybody told of these things that were on the Faces of Death tapes that were never there,
right?
Everybody
the urban legend, the legends around it,
But it's not there anymore. It's that saying which, God, it sounds so arrogant, but it's so dead on. Tapping the zeitgeist applies to why so many movies were good when they were good, and that's long gone.
Casey Cooper told me to speak for myself, youngster. Yes, I know that we have people in the live chat who were watching Faces of Death when they were in their teens and in their 20s and in their 30s, and you who was there, before these things were even conceived. I get it, but Yes, I am just a kid. I'm a kid at heart, at least. But yeah, Joshua Lee says that's just like season 2 of Velma. It's something no one cares about or wants, and it's just a cash grab and a piece of shit, in my opinion. I actually agree with this. The idea of remaking this when the whole appeal of Faces of Death relied on word of mouth alone. Yeah, that you have to wait to see, you have to watch it. First, you have to track it down and find it. Then you have to watch it. Then you go and tell people about it. But there's that span of time when the legends can build. And Aaron, made reference to the legends that built around this. People talk about, I heard there was this and that. It was literally an example of how urban legends, build up around particular phenomena, which is fascinating. None of that can exist anymore with the advent of the internet. So I don't know what they're doing. I don't know what the purpose is. It feels like a cash grab. I probably will watch it when it comes out because I watch all kinds of shit. When I've got nothing better to do, I will watch I have watched some of the worst werewolf shit on Tubi. When I'm in the gym, I would like, what the fuck, man? It's just some terrible stuff out there. But I digress. But let us know in the comments below or weekinhorror@gmail.com. Faces of Death. Did you grow up with it? Did you ever watch it? Because even that's rare. Did you watch it? Did you ever see it?
I didn't see it until I was in my 20s. I saw one, and by that time I knew what the deal was.
Gotcha.
But
okay.
The only way I could see it, is just kind of last comment on it, is something like alternate reality online where they're teasing stuff and letting it build up on forums and everything like that. If you pack it all into one movie, it's just, you're gonna have to polish like a fucker, JL.
We're gonna have to lease out the TP9000 for them to save that piece of shit. But definitely let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Faces of Death. Did you grow up with it? Did you ever watch it? Are you only familiar with the legends? Will you see it when it comes out simply because you never got to watch the originals? And I'm here to tell you, the original stuff back in the 80s, it's like not that impressive. It wasn't that impressive. It was just the idea that real death stuff on film. Oh, and then that was the appeal. But in actuality, like most of it was fake, and it just I was like, whatever. So I don't know. I likely will watch it, but I watch shit all the time. So I guess
Cannibal Holocaust topped it decade earlier.
Right, yeah. All right. So and it's just JL, why? I'm assuming that question is, why do I watch the shit movies that I watch? Because I'm in the gym and so my whole thing is set up and I have the TV right there. I set it up so I have the big screen right there in front of it. So my gym is essentially, when I work out, I'm facing the TV, and I spend the time watching stuff when I'm in the gym. And when I'm in the gym, typically I can watch a movie, and I'll sit there and throw something on. Now, the first thing I watch every week is I watch the movies we're going to talk about. I do rewatches of those, sometimes multiple. But when I'm, I work out every day, so I got to find something. And Tubi, I can throw on and be like, what's new on Tubi? More bullshit. And sometimes it's but occasionally I find a gem. One little one that went under the radar that maybe should have gotten a little bit more money in marketing. Some decent ones. I found some stuff, but yeah, usually it's all shit.
I figured you were gonna be like, I can't cut it off until I finish my reps.
Oh yeah, it pushes me through, and it's like, yeah, but I have yet to run into one where I've been like, this is so bad I have to turn it off. It was like, no, go into something else. I'll push through just to see if there's any redeeming qualities whatsoever. So, but nonetheless, yeah, I'm trying. Yeah, basically,
man.
Cindy Sue says I'm panning for gold. Is what I'm doing.
I got a disease. I might die early. I'm not wasting my time on that shit unless you put it on a list, JL.
I am literally the fucking the prospector in that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer film, the claymation film, just throwing the axe up to nothing, and then moving on to the next one. So I can't remember that character's name. I bet there's a blast from the past. I bet people are like, holy shit. But yeah, that's what I'm doing. All right. Well, as Alex likes to say, we do have some movies to talk about tonight. We have some amazing stuff to jump into. So, Aaron, you're back. It's amazing. Why don't you kick us off? The script's over on this side of me, but kick us off. What do we have up first tonight in our Legends collection?
All right, up first for May 5th, 1972, and I am hoping I pronounce this right, is Cuadecuc Vampir.
Come on, dude.
What? I thought we were going to do the
trailer. Yeah,
first.
but you got to give me the...
Oh, God. Throw it on the terror tube. Oh, the liver's kicking in.
More human than I am alone.
Bert, you okay? Bert?
As a man who does not give one fuck.
Critical. Need to know information.
Puppy.
The actual death of Dracula in the book is surprisingly very short. Takes place in just a few lines. But I will explain to you just very briefly what happens before actual words appear in the book. Quincy Morris, and Jonathan Harker, and well, I think also Arthur, I'm not quite sure. I'm sorry, nous devons recommencer.
I looked that effect up, and it is so cool. So, like, the people who are listening wouldn't have gotten much from that, and they will learn why here in a second. But it's directed by Pere Portabella, written, which I'm not sure how you write this, but written by Joan Brossa and Pere Portabella, starring Jesus Franco, Emma Cohen, Jack Taylor, Soledad Miranda, Herbert Lom, and Christopher Lee. So part documentary and part experimental art film, Cuadecuc documents the making of Jesus Franco's 1970 version of Bram Stoker's story, Count Dracula. Combining behind-the-scenes footage and alternative shot angles from the actual film with unorthodox sound effects and music attracts the creation of the movie alongside its primary plot points to lay out a condensed version of both. And it does an amazing job of it. Like, normally experimental art films, I'm like, they just wander and everything, but this does what it does perfectly to the point. Like, if there are more films like this that were experimental art films, we'd be better off, because it has the film or the feel of some of like what was coming out of the factory with Warhol.
Right.
But it makes sense.
I think when I watched this one, see, this is fascinating. Obviously, the story of Dracula is there, and it's very, very truncated. So the entire and by the way, people, Casey Cooper, tip of the hat to you from Casey Cooper, because can you imagine how bad Eugene would have butchered those names? And he likely would have. But
we got Perry Porterbilly.
So it's a fascinating and very, very eerie production in what Portobello was trying to bring across. Now, I find this, and the whole story of Dracula is basically truncated in there. You get all of the parts, but then you get a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that's going on, which I find really, really cool. You know, the stuff that you'd find in a behind the scenes documentary, like how they do certain stuff. You know, how the preparation to make Christopher Lee into Dracula, all of the the setups. And I really loved the sequences that Portobello was shooting when it was Loam and Herbert Loam, who plays Van Helsing, and they're in the study, and he's basically recounting all of the information that he has about them, and everybody's sitting around, and the camera's kind of moving about really close and getting all that together, like, but they're still doing the scene. So either that was like a rehearsal, or he was shooting, whatever, kind of off to the side, but really, really brilliant stuff. Now, the thing about this film is that I watched Cuadecuc before I watched Franco's Dracula. So, and I found that really kind of, how to describe it? My interpretation of Portobello's work I think, was different than if I had watched Franco's film first. Because I think because that would have grounded me to a particular like to what I was looking at. Because in Franco's work, you have magnificent performances. You got Lee as Dracula. You've got Herbert Loam, classic Herbert Loam as Van Helsing. Fucking Klaus Kinski as Renfield. You know, literally where he's not really playing a character, it's just Klaus Kinski in his natural state. Everybody is amazing in that fucking movie. And so, but I'm glad that I watched Cuadecuc beforehand, because I got snippets into the brilliance behind the film, and then go in and watch the actual physical story, which I thought was good. If I'd watched the full movie beforehand, I think I would have had a different takeaway on Portobello's work. And not to mention the energy of the original film, the energy of this one. This one is so eerie, and I think lends itself to the energy of the Bram Stoker myth more than any film does. I think the closest I could get would be oh shit, the 1992, the big one. Fuck, Coppola's film. I think that same kind of energy was there, but Portobello grabbed that, and I think he captured not only the essence of the movie itself, not to mention what the actors are bringing to it and their experiences behind the scenes, and the fun that they were having, plus the professionalism there. Not to mention, it closes out the whole thing with Lee reading from the book, and the Cuadecuc. For those unfamiliar with that term, that what directly translated is worm's tail, and what it is that it refers to the how is it described? It refers to the undeveloped tail end of the film itself. So that one section right there at the end, that's what it's referring to, in which the truth teller, the truth bearer, is revealed. And so this is kind of like Portobello as vampire preying upon Franco, in that sense, when it leads out with Christopher Lee reading the end of the story, and he's kind of like giving his sum up. And I love that Christopher Lee has such a appreciation for the book itself, and understanding that few people, I think, understood the character as Bram Stoker intended than Christopher Lee. So
yeah, and that's something we'll get into later,
right? Yes,
but yeah,
it's fascinating. I mean, the one thing I got, obviously the political overtones. that run throughout this whole thing, because the whole thing was shot when Portobello shot this, and when Franco shot Dracula, all of this was under the Franco regime in Spain. That was happening currently. They were currently under a dictatorship, and Portobello is also a politician. He was a politician. He was active in politics and activism, and he allowed his filmmaking to portray his political viewpoints in that, which is why he shot in 16 millimeter, which I thought was brilliant because it allows the overtones, the bleach out and the diffusion down into blackness really play in telling this particular story, and basically personifying the Franco regime as being taking the Franco regime and reflecting that as Dracula itself and what it imposes upon the people around it, but also the myth and the mystery of it, and just so fucking subversive.
Well, the thing that hooks me on it is the fact that there are so many technically correct and creatively correct decisions in this, because you have to think about it. Like we said, Christopher Lee, the part that everybody heard spoken is the only part in the entire movie that is spoken. But exactly at every moment what is going on, where they're at in the production. The only time they fall out of line in production is the fact that they have a soundstage and they shot all the stuff on the soundstage sequentially. You don't take and do something on the soundstage and then go out to a foreign country and come back to soundstage. You just get it done. And but beyond that, like, they take and they do the behind the scenes, then they do a part of the movie, then they do the behind the scenes, and it's that classic rule of a show, don't tell. And they do that amazingly. I mean, it's just, so it starts out with the car, and you're like, why is a car in something about Dracula? And you see that it's somebody, it's modern times, and they're transitioning into the filming, and they show the behind the scenes on putting the smoke out and stuff, and they do that repeatedly.
That was cool as shit. When they were like laying the smoke, and then the carriage comes. I was like, oh, that was fucking cool, because he's coming through with the device. It's like, oh, he's laying down the mist in the woods, and then he's out of frame, and here comes the cow. I was like, oh, and with the black and white, that was so brilliant. I was like, that's fucking cool as shit.
Well, then they do the same thing with the vehicles. There is a train, and then with the plane, you don't see the plane, but you hear the sound effect, and it tells you we're transitioning countries. Okay, we're on a new filming location. And it just very intelligently does it the whole way. And then two, when you're talking about Christopher Lee doing the ending, if you look at his approach with everybody else, he coordinates with the other actors to do little snippets, which the stuff he does with the women alone requires its commentary. But like at the end, he does with the guys, they're sitting there and they see Christopher Lee taking off makeup and they're shocked. And it's almost skit-like with them. But Christopher Lee, he does not interfere with. He does not have Christopher Lee do anything for it until the very end. There's stuff that Christopher Lee does voluntarily, like taking off the makeup and stuff and lunging at the camera, and just being a ultra cool badass that he is. Like when he walks on the set with sunglasses on, everybody's like Christopher,
fucking rocking that stash, dude. I know it was fake, but I mean, I was like Dracula with a stash. And if for those who haven't seen the Franco film, his character, the Dracula, gets progressively younger throughout the film the more he feeds. So he starts off as this old man, shock white hair, white mustache that's kind of like thinned, and he's definitely very, very old. Then he starts feeding. He feeds on Mina, and he feeds on Lucy. Feeds on Harker first. And as he progressively feeds on more people, he gets younger and younger. So it's that shock, that raven black hair, solid fucking porn stash, rocking it. And it was just like, dude, this man is just pure power. I fucking loved it. That sequence when he's on the street and Harker thinks he sees him, and he's just like, ha, and he's like, it was like, oh, I think I saw him, and he's like, how is it possible? Come on. He's like, so I love that moment. He looks like such a badass. So fucking only Lee could do it.
Well, and the important thing, too, about this movie is this was the most canonically accurate up until that point, and it might even be up until Coppola. I mean, it takes a little bit of liberty in Dracula's motivation, but it's closer than some of the others. So that made it easier to actually follow along as the behind the scenes stuff goes on. But yeah, the women, that was interesting. They so like with the women, it starts out with him following the Lucy character, and they have the music, and the only thing I could find to kind of describe it is it's like almost an orchestral bossa nova soundtrack to it that plays with her. And then when he trained you to expect it to go on and then transition gently out, but then they kill her and it just suddenly stops with that pounding piano music. And with her, and it's really oddly opposite how the characters kind of are portrayed in movies, where the footage of the actress playing Lucy is a little more chaste. But then when he gets the actress, and the name, I can't remember the name, but the one that plays Mina, like, dude had an erotic fascination with her, and she ran with it and everything. And it still uses the same music, but it does like a halting tone with a lot of them, where it's like, it's not normal, because it's like plays the music and then skips and then skips and then skips and everything. And he did something completely separate from everything else with the women that's going on, what's in there. And I'm like, it's a little bit sexist, but it's also a little bit interesting.
Yeah, Maria Rome was incredible. It was Maria Rome who played Mina in that, and she was incredibly talented Austrian actress. And she went. If anybody gets a chance to like look into her filmography, that she was one of the well known for going full bore into everything she did. She tackled every single part, as each part was she classically trained actor. Every single part is important. There is no small role, and you're playing a role in a deal. It deserves everything you've got. And she was willing to do what was necessary to bring that story to life, to really envision that character, and bring what the director's vision to life as well, bring Portobella's life. And I love that the reflection, the gender dynamics, or the kind of like the idea of gender roles and where people sat under Franco's dictatorship at the time, like how people were viewed, is expressed brilliantly in Cuadecuc, which I thought was fantastic. It's not in Franco's film. Franco just shot a Dracula film. That was Franco's movie, was just Count Dracula. It's very, very simple. He hits it point to point. You don't to see how those are pieced together, all those parts are taken together, and the way Portobello shot it. It's a completely new experience. So you have to see it as much through his eyes as as Bram Stoker's eyes as well, because I think he does both justice to his agenda and justice to what Bram Stoker was trying to convey, and showing the parallels of this, that the evils of the past are reflected in the perils of today, which I thought I don't think anybody else, I've never found anything else like this, not to this degree. Even when we were talking about last week, when I was talking about Coleman's trilogy, Beast of Yucca Flats, and the other two movies that he did that get parodied on MST3K and Riff Tracks. The problem is that Coleman was a very politically minded, and also kind of like industrial military complex minded individual. So his movies are obviously, you watch them, are anti-war. Those are protest films. They absolutely are. For as bad as they are, he had an idea. So Joshua Lee says, so would I say that he said Franco, but Portobello. So Portobello, would I say that Portobello did the film right, unlike other political directors like Coleman Francis? Yes. This is how you express your political ideology through art. This is exactly how you do it. It was brilliant in that respect. And Portobello was as respected a filmmaker as he was a politician and an activist. The work he did, because he put himself into it, he had a vision of what he wanted to encompass. He saw the parallels there that I don't, maybe other people saw him, but no other filmmakers, hit that nail on the head to express the reality of this, why these stories are important, what they tell us about ourselves, how they're allegories for the shit that's going on today. Even Dracula, that story that old is still an allegory for what's important. And Portobello saw that, which is why I think that this is literally the perfect companion piece to any film. Like, if you watch these films, they have to be, if you watch, Count Dracula, which is free on YouTube right now, free on YouTube to watch Horror of Dracula, you must watch Cuadecuc as well in order to get that full feel.
Not
question
horror Dracula, Count Dracula.
Count
Horror
Dracula.
Dracula.
Yeah, Count Dracula. Jesus Franco's Count Dracula. Watch that one, and this one is the perfect companion piece. And now I want to change this from what I wrote in the script. Okay, so what I really kind of want to know. I don't mean to steal the CTA from you like this, but I'm curious.
Care.
And you can pass it on to we can find out from the audience. But in what order do you think they should be watched? Because I watched Cuadecuc first, then I watched Count Dracula afterwards. So, but what about you? What do you think?
Oh, I mean, yeah, Cuadecuc first, because the thing is, like, you're a writer. I write too, but your primary thing is writing, where my primary thing tends to be making. Like, if I can make props, if I can do whatever production stuff, I prefer to do that. But this really, if you watch this first, you will gain a new appreciation for what goes into that movie to make it, because I think a lot of people are going to see it, and they do it with a lot of Hammer films and stuff at the time, and Amicus and stuff during the 70s. These were, this one is earlier. When was this? 70? Was this one 72? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 72,
sorry,
yeah.
I started questioning myself because everything's jumping around. But yeah, during the 70s, you had, New Hollywood. And this stuff's running alongside it, and it inherits a lot of the artistic value from it and stuff. But people tend to diss it like they do all horror, but it makes you appreciate what goes into even a simple film like this that is executed properly. Because, like I said, the thing that hooked me was the spiderweb thing, and I'm like, how did they do that? And it's either rubber cement or... I didn't see an instructional, but somebody mentioned the use of liquid latex, and you put it in the can and you punch a hole in it, and they put it on a fan, but now you can put it on like a metal fan like you get from a cooler and put it in a drill, and you just spin it and it makes webs. Or you can use a can of Loctite, I think it's 300. It's an adhesive, and it does the same thing. If you just tap it and do a little stream, it throws out web, which is slower. But as soon as they did that, I'm like, all right, I'm in. You're showing me what you did and how you did it. I'm in. And I definitely watch Cuadecuc first.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, Tang Whistle says Tang Whistle offers Dracula first. So Count Dracula first, then Cuadecuc, then Dracula again with a new understanding. Obviously, you could watch that. You definitely could watch that way. You're going to be in front of the screen for a while. To give you that new appreciation. I grasp that. I think. Going in cold, I agree with Aaron in that. Cuadecuc first, then watch the actual film. So you get like the taste of that and a sense of what was going on behind the scenes, not just in the film itself, but what was going on behind the scenes for all the people in that country. What was happening, the geopolitical scenario that was informing, what people were doing. Get a sense of the reality surrounding the fiction. And then watch the fiction with that kind of enlightened, I would say that enlightened approach or that enlightened viewpoint. That worked best for me. That's what I found. I know full well that if I'd watched Franco's movie first, that I would have digested Portobello's much, much differently, because the energy is completely different. Go for the eerie, then stay for the spectacle of Franco's movie, because Franco's movie is great. It's really good. It's a solid adaptation. I really enjoyed it, and fairly true to the book. For what they could do with the budget that they had, plus shooting on location in Spain. You have access to a lot of really cool shit. You never really realize when you're watching Hammer films, Dracula movies, like the castles are so opulent and they're huge and they're massive and they're gothic and they're like, oh, in reality, castles, not often like that. Usually just big ass stone structures. And so the castle you see in Franco's movie is kind of like, oh, it's kind of like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's like, well, it's a castle. It's like, oh yeah, it's pretty much just like a wall of stone that just kind of like is just big, and people just there's something kind of very, very grounded and realistic about, which I found interesting. But I think people will really dig Franco's film, but definitely watch Cuadecuc first. That was my question for the audience: is like, which one, if you watched it, which did you watch first, Cuadecuc or Count Dracula? Did you watch the Franco film first or the Portobello film first? And did it affect your interpretation of the film? Did it affect how you digested either one? Did one inform the other? Or were you able to keep them separate? That's really curious to me. I'm really, really interested in hearing about that. Really. Oh, I thought I saw someone new. Chaos Theory is here. Good to see you, Chaos Theory. Thanks so much. Caster says, y'all just giving stuff away randomly. We give away stuff at the trivia portion at the end of the show. We do a trivia question, and then the first person to get the correct answer in the live chat gets a special prize from the Week in Horror store. So if you like to hang out by then, maybe you could win something if you know the answer. So, or if you have the fastest Google fingers. So, all right. But yeah, that's what I want to know. So let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Also, what did you think of it? Was it a hit? Was it a miss? I know some people said that they were bored. I saw a couple people said that in the live chat they were bored by it, that they found it boring. I was enthralled myself. I was just kind of like, this is so new. It was like, I love the experimental, man. It's hit or miss, but this fucking thing hits.
Yeah, I think if you've got to be into what's going on behind the scenes. If not, it's not your taste and never gonna be.
Right. All right, let's move on to our next one tonight. We have so much of this one released May 7th, 1934. We have the legendary The Black Cat. Let's check out this trailer. Cue up the terror tube. There you go.
Trying to taunt me. Just getting in words. Cue it up.
Time to float.
Gotta love that old school Universal.
Oh, yeah. Dude, that reminds me of so many like sleepovers at night where you watch the Late Show.
God, the music selection in this fucking movie was amazing.
Toccata and Fugue in D minor.
And Beethoven's 7th. Oh, the use of Beethoven's 7th is always so good.
Victim of one of the commoner phobias, but in an extreme form. He has an intense and all-consuming horror of cats.
Suggested by, yes. That was the trailer for the legendary Black Cat, the 1934 film. So keep that in mind, because right now, I believe it's on YouTube, or the one that I found is the 1941 version. So this 1934 version. So pre-code horror film, directed by Edgar G. Ulmer and written by Peter Rurik. Story by Edgar Ulmer and Peter Rurik, and of course, suggested by The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe, but it's literally in name only, and starring, of course, Boris Karloff, legendary Boris Karloff, and Bela Lugosi, playing off of each other. David Manners, Jacqueline Wells, Lucille Lund, Egon Brescher, and Harry Cording. So the film follows a young couple who is vacationing, I believe, in Budapest. No, Hungary. Or vacationing. Yeah. They're taking their honeymoon in Hungary, and they meet this older man who is traveling to see an old friend. This old psychiatrist who's traveling to meet an old friend, and they wind up in a bus crash. And he manages to get them to the estate of the friend that he is there to meet, who is played by, of course, Boris Karloff. And it turns out that there is an old rivalry between these two going back to World War I, which was not that far away. You think about that, and that Bela Lugosi's character has an old score to settle with the guy who has this house, involving his wife and his daughter, and a bunch of psychological shit that's going on. But the title of the film, The Black Cat, is in name only, and it allows for like a trope in the film because of the kind of like the popularity of psychiatry and psychology at the time in the 1930s when it was really kind of ramping up. So that was kind of thrown in there for a plot trope, just for Lugosi's sake, for Lugosi's character. But the brilliance of this is the opportunity, obviously, to see the dance between two horror legends, not having to play like, legendary monsters. So this is not vampire, Dracula versus Frankenstein. This is literally just two extremely well-grounded characters in the wake of World War I, where one is finally caught up to the other one from the horrors and atrocities that occurred during that time period and is looking to settle that score between them. The political commentary here is rich. Not to mention, it throws into the satanic tropes and the idea of the occult and supernatural, but the bubbling energy of what was going, because I thought it lent itself so brilliantly to it, because Lugosi himself was Hungarian, okay, and Karloff was English. Given the roles that their countries played in World War I, and that Hungary took such a massive hit, like, politically, economically, military strength wise, was not good. And then the two of them, after this, playing these roles based on who they were, and the Siberian prison camps and the shit that happened to people when they were stuck in POW camps for the time, and then all of that energy playing into this. These guys lived during that time period. They saw that shit firsthand. And then the opportunity to tell these stories lends itself so beautifully to this. Not to mention the mentalities there, the willingness to still abide by the gentleman's agreement, and that you are a monster, but we will treat each other as gentlemen. I found fascinating in how they brought that, and it's compellingly realistic and grounded, which I found really it's top fucking notch.
Well, here's the thing. I will say this is not by any means or any stretch a bad movie. It is good. It's more than a good movie. It's a very good movie. But if you're going to watch it, you need to understand that you're coming to watch Karloff and Lugosi square off. Everything else, some of it is proto horror. It's stuff that's going to get, fleshed out in later movies and stuff. But it all feels wedged in. The Black Cat itself is the most shoehorned element in the entire movie. It really is. It's just, it shows up and freezes Vargas in his.
Not to mention that whole knife scene, the whole ha! It's like, holy shit, dude! It's just like, God, okay, I'm good. Woo!
Yeah. But yeah, it kind of pops in, something happens and it's gone. And at one point he's carrying stuff. And then the same thing with the witchcraft, which is really odd that this is pre-code, because I was trying to figure out watching this. So I don't know if it's because it was an artistic decision to do calling it a double cross sounds weird, because double cross is normally betrayal, but that's basically what it was. It's a single shaft going down the middle. Don't giggle because I said shaft. And then two cross beams and stuff at the back instead of doing an upside down cross. And at first, because I always watch the movie and then I look it up. I want to appreciate the movie before I get the background. And then it said it's pre-code. I didn't even think about that beforehand, that this was pre-code. So I'm like, why not do the upside down cross? And then evidently that character, Polchig, I believe is his name.
Yeah, Polchig, yeah.
He was inspired by Aleister Crowley. He is nothing like Aleister Crowley. The inspiration was very vague, and they really didn't there was so much more that could have and should have been fleshed out. But I really didn't give a shit, because the two of them against each other was really interesting, because they got to break the standard perception of their characters. Because normally Karloff is he's portrayed as a very big guy because he's tall, but he'll play either, he's played kind of a thuggish character before when he actually had intelligence.
In black and white, it's the angles of his face. He's got that hardline jaw, that high brow that's almost kind of squared off. He's got that almost Cro-Magnon look to him.
Yeah.
So it lends itself to heavies and thugs and ghoulish characters, that whole kind of thing. And he completely gets to dispense with that. It's like none of that is relevant.
He's an intelligent,
the cerebral nature of it, right?
And then the same thing with Lugosi, who's playing a good guy, but this good guy is not very good, it turns out. And I understand why he does what he does, because he got everything he loved ripped away from him. The one thing that he could hope for when he got out of prison was just not only taken away, but sullied before it's taken away. And he's just like, I'm going to take your skin. But getting to see them break type and play off against each other, but everything else just feels inserted as a mechanism for that. And they could have done a better job of kind of lacing that in. Like, why does the bus crash there? Let's explain that, because it's got to be that night there. Well, they should have set a trap or something along those lines, and they could have fleshed it out. But like, you really don't give a damn when it's done. If you're looking for the criticism, it's there. But if you're just sitting down and enjoying a movie, it's a damn good movie.
The opportunity to see these titans of the horror genre and the legend that we know to dispense with all of that and really just be actors, to portray these characters with all of their incredibly rich backstories. Because oftentimes, like you were saying, like virtually every other character that's in this is just like, they're just thrown in for filler. There's no depth to the couple that's honeymooning. To Peter and Joan. Literally, it's my kind of like, I interpret it as that Peter and Joan are literally only there to set up the kind of like the gag line at the end of the film. And that was because Peter's a mystery novelist. And that's, and he's well known and well regarded. And his wife is kind of like playing no dimensions at all. The wife. Oh, and then I get injured. And then I float, whimsically, or I float, ethereally through the film, like this until eventually the film's over. Provides nothing. And then all it's meant to do is just set up that end gag when he's reading the review of his latest book. And it's like, and then he's like, oh, it's getting good reviews like that. Then he reads this one reviewer is like, I felt that the story was unrealistic. It was like, try writing something that is grounded, that could occur in reality, given the story, given what they just went through with the Satanism and the two men, the revenge and like and all that craziness. And he's kind of like, huh. And then he looks at her as like, the whole like truth is stranger than fiction kind of thing. And so that's kind of pointless. You watch the movie for Lugosi and Karloff squaring off one another as titans of their craft, and to see these guys really embrace a character. Now, there's a little bit of ham, obviously. That was the standard at the time as far as acting styles go. A little bit kind of like over the top, but to watch the two, especially in the chess sequence, I love that. Or when he's informing him what happened to his wife and his daughter, but not telling him everything. That we see that one man's got the psychological power in this one, the other one's there just on pure rage, and it's all simmering under the surface. But we're refusing to allow that to overcome our gentlemanly veneer. That we will approach this as gentlemen. That mentality there, lending itself to this, is just it's a hallmark of the time period, and to how people view themselves, even in the face of the atrocities of things like World War I. And just a beautiful piece that showcases everything important that's going on, not just these characters, but what was going on in the world. I love that dance between the two of them, how their energy, how it played off, So definitely don't miss this one.
Yeah, Lugosi, well, so everybody else in it is basically just a human MacGuffin, because you need to keep, whenever you're writing a story, you just throw stuff in the protagonist's way to steer them. You do it a little bit with the antagonist, but you're really challenging the protagonist. And they kind of at first portray it as the couple are main characters. Couple are not the main characters.
Nope.
They are there to steer Lugosi mainly, and a little bit of Karloff. He uses
to kind of ground his humanity. They ground his humanity is kind of what it is.
Because he's an anti-hero. He's an early anti-hero. He's gonna do some terrible shit. Like, you destroyed his world. He's coming for you, but he's not gonna get anybody else taken down if he can help it. And so it's what stops him from basically just walking in and blowing his damn head off.
I love that. I love that. I love that because everybody's so finely coiffed. And I love this trait of especially of pre-code films like 1930s, 1940s, that everybody's so finely coiffed. Hair is always set. Everybody's impeccably dressed. Everyone's got their character. When the hair goes crazy, when they're fighting and the hair's like, it's like, that's when it's kind of like when Goku loses his shirt. That's when the shit hits the fan. I love it when Bela Lugosi's hair just goes fucking insane for a fight. Or, I love the how emotions are conveyed in black and white. With black and white, you don't get many of the fine details that you get today, especially in close-ups, because in close-ups, everything is extremely filtered. So you see that kind of like that haze that's over there when they're either utilizing Vaseline on the lens, or they're layering it with stockings in order to in order to filter out or to soften the image. They do it a lot with female actresses in order to give that ethereal quality of the ethereal beauty that they represent on film. Every time that's why you get that kind of like fuzzy look whenever you do those extreme close-ups. Now, away from it, you don't get a lot of those details. So it's got to come out in the character, it's got to come out in the wardrobe, and it's got to come out in the how they style them. So that's what I love about that. And the fact that he's skinny, it's like let's straight up. Oh, I've got you now, and now I'm gonna skin you alive, bitch. Yeah, and he just goes to town with like, this is the beauty of pre-code. This is because this shit would never fly post-code. The Hays Code would be like, no, he just shoots him. Pow! And then I'm dead. Good guy wins. He's like, no, fucking Lugosi's gonna skin Karloff alive, and we're gonna see it. We're gonna see it in silhouette, but we're gonna see it. When he does it to him, it's just fucking amazing.
Yeah, and Karloff couldn't have been like Karloff could not have been kind of like the psychopath that he was either, because the good guy is a good guy and the bad guy is a bad guy, and you don't mix them up during the Hays era.
So brilliant stuff, absolutely brilliant. And the cool thing about this is that the Black Cat 1934 was the first time that Lugosi and Karloff played off one another. That they met on, that they played characters in a film, and they played and they got to do the dance. The very first time they went on to do it to appear in together in another 7 films after this, and they're all good. They're all fantastic. So the question that I want to ask the audience, given that the Black Cat was the first time that these two titans were able to come together and work together, given what they did beforehand, the legends that they created beforehand, what has been your favorite pairing, your favorite film that paired Lugosi and Karloff together, that brought them together? So it's got to be, I'm going to have to say the Black Cat is my favorite, because it allowed the actors to act, to do the job, instead of like all the stuff that with all the legends around them kind of like drove some other stuff. Getting to see them act is great, but this is the first time we get to see them embody characters that really get to do the job. And so Black Cat's is my favorite number 1. Do you have a favorite of the 8 times they were together on film?
See, I've only seen a few of them, and those are, God, I've got a big gap in my memory where it trauma blocked when I was younger, and that is buried in there, and it pisses me off. So, I mean, but this was one that I watched like a few years back, and it was a badass movie. But yeah, I vaguely recall another one. So, I mean, and which, when you look it up, this is the top rated one. This is the best one. And it's not hyper surprising given the fact that, no, this is not a Universal monster movie, but like it's a Universal horror movie, and they peaked at a certain point and they stopped getting better, that's just what happens.
Right. So, like other ones, the Body Snatcher is one they were together in. The Invisible Ray, Son of Frankenstein, which obviously is capitalizing on the legend as well. Yeah. Black Friday and The Raven, which is another one of Universal's attempts to kind of like glom or take the appeal of Edgar Allan Poe's work and kind of run with that. Same with the Black Cat, where it's pretty much The Raven in name only, but Gift of
the
Gab
Raven
as well. So
The Raven I saw were not nearly as good as a Black Cat.
Right.
That one I do remember.
Black Cat was absolutely. Ivy Gentry also says Black Cat was amazing. Absolutely was. So Casey Cooper says you'll find out. Excellent. Gift of Gab as well. Yep. And of course the Fallen Vampire. I loved this one for the story it was telling, because there's so much going into it, and there's so much material and backstory that these characters play into these. You get to see them just legitimately. You don't have to be Dracula. You don't have to be Frankenstein. Come at this as though this story would work on a fucking stage, and that these veteran stage actors could portray this. You could do this on a stage, and a stage production of the Black Cat would be fantastic. I think the title is kind of like misleading, but I thought it'd be fantastic. It's really, really brilliant. But let us know down in the comments below at weekinhorror@gmail.com your favorite pairing, or what you think is the best pairing, the best film that paired Bela Lugosi and Boris Karloff. I'm very curious to hear what people think about that. But yeah. Fucking Black Cat. I'm so glad we got to chat about this one.
Yeah, the Black Cat appears like 5 times, but the title is still more accurate than most of Corman's films.
This is true. All right, let's carry on to our next one, because we are diving into the House of Hammer.
Oh yeah,
legend. Let's get into this.
Not just Hammer, but like Hammer. All right.
Legit.
From May 8th, 1958, Horror of Dracula. Throw up the terror tube.
You think you can destroy me? Your eyes. You get out of here, little girl. You don't belong here. You get now. Come on. Get out of here, demon. Get.
This is the story of Dracula, a creature who destroys all whom he touches. Dracula the terrifying, the feared, who sleeps in the tombs of the dead by day and arises at night to inflict his terror upon the innocent and the unsuspecting.
You must help me. You must. You're my only hope. You must.
I'll help you. I promise.
Get out of here, bitch!
Please try and understand. This is not Lucy, the sister you loved. It's only a shell, possessed and corrupted by the evil of
Dracula. How do you destroy a fiend who has so far proven himself indestructible? Those who come to end his reign of terror stay to become his victims.
Castle Dracula is somewhere here in Klausenberg. Will you tell me how I get there?
You ordered a meal, sir. As an innkeeper, it's my duty to serve you. When you've eaten, I ask you to go and leave us in peace.
This is the doctor who dares to challenge the vampire Dracula. This is the anguished man who fears for the lives of his beloved, the girl who is his sister, and the one that is his wife. Dracula, the bedeviled master of all that is evil.
All right. Directed by Terrence Fisher, written by Jimmy Sangster, and of course inspired by the novel by Bram Stoker. Starring Carol Marsh, Melissa Stribling, Michael Goff, Christopher Lee, and Peter Cushing. This is Hammer's original reformulation of the Dracula story, changing it to fit a shorter runtime and move a swifter pace. After Jonathan Harker is killed while attempting to slay Dracula, his associate Professor Abraham von Helsing, played by Peter Cushing, must stop Christopher Lee's iconic Dracula from murdering Harker's fiance as well as the rest of her household. Yeah, I typed up summaries because I knew I would have alcohol in my system. But this is, when you talk about Hammer Dracula, heck, when you talk about most, like any of the British horror portrayals of Dracula, this is the movie. The shot they show where his teeth are bared and the blood is coming out of the corners of his mouth, that's the picture that's in every single description of a Hammer.
And the bloodshot eyes and everything.
Mm-hmm.
When he did that ECU right there when he pops in. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is the iconic one. And it's really odd because they scrambled the events. I mean, Jimmy Sangster, when he wrote it, he knew what he was working with. He knew that Hammer was working on a lower budget, that the original Dracula story, if you portray it as is, it can kind of meander a bit, because you go through the whole section with Jonathan Harker and there's there are things happening, but it's not executing a plot. I mean, the guy's fucked from the start. So he switches it up and sends him there to kill Dracula and stuff. And he changed a lot of characters around and everything. But what is awesome about it is that, like, you don't really care because it's still an awesome movie because Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing are so badass in this movie that it's like, whatever everybody else is doing, he got killed. I'm sorry, but you know, they need to fight.
I love this one, and I think why this film is important. I mean, nonetheless, it's just a collection of some of the greatest actors that we've come across. Obviously, Peter Cushing, the legendary Peter Cushing, and Christopher Lee together, you know, playing adversaries in this, and of course Michael Gough as well. You know, for those who may not be familiar with him, obviously he was Alfred the Butler in Tim Burton's films, but Michael Gough has a legendary history in horror films, especially with Hammer. And I think what's beyond cool about this one is that this film and why it's so important sets the tone for pretty much everything that generations are familiar with today. And so this was Lee's first outing as Dracula, the very first time that he played this role, a role that he'd go on to play so many times again. And it was his appearance as Frankenstein for Hammer that led to him landing this role. So he played Frankenstein first and then got to play Dracula for this one, for Horror Dracula. And it's what I think he did, what he identified, and what makes speaks to Christopher Lee's brilliance. And everybody talked about it, especially when the reviews came out at the time back in the 50s, is that Lee identified the sensual nature of Dracula. Whereas there was a time when Universal was tackling it, when the original stories tackled it, he's a monster, is what he is. He's just a monster, just a parasite in that sense, which was an allegory for the aristocracy at the time, but there was the political kind of like undertones. But the fact that he was just a parasite subsisting off of the blood of the working person. Now, Stoker himself saw it as kind of like the bloodlust of the madman in that sense, but there is a sensuality to this, to the nature of the connection, especially with women, of them giving themselves in their entirety to the strength or to the image of the ideal man. And Lee jumped on that. He saw that immediately, and that's where we get the idea that it's not just this like 30 Days of Night where it's just, you know, like monsters that eat people. It's like, that's, you know, it's just the bloodlust thing. There's a literal sensuality, a sexuality to it. And Lee brought that tall, the tall, mysterious, tall, dark, and mysterious man with that powerful gaze and his fluid movements and almost ballet-like, and his tenderness going into the violence of what he's doing, the seductive motions when he comes down, and it's almost like foreplay for him, and that women just giving themselves over to this incredible power. Lee identified that, brought that into the character, and that has informed our I would say the zeitgeist notion of the vampire, not just Dracula, but the vampire legend there that we saw. Gary Oldman jumped on that as well. We see that in many moments in Coppola's interpretation in 1990, almost 40 years after the fact, in 1992. So that, seeing him build that, and I think Lee himself said that when he took the role, he had not yet read the book. Mm-hmm. And then he kind of like ran through it as quick as he could to get a sense, but he wanted his first portrayal going in to kind of be his own. He didn't want to just copy or risk his performance copying the stuff that had come before. He wanted to come into it and bring what he thought, and he immediately saw that. So those brilliant instincts that he had as an actor and what he brought to it, and basically informed the genre going forward, the interpretations of this character, which I thought was just brilliant. Not to mention Peter Cushing leveling that off, and that epic fight at the end, which you gotta love. Not to mention when the sun hits him, like that. For 1950, that was pretty damn fucking good. So really, really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah, they saved the practical effects money for that kill at the end. Everybody else dies corpse, and they actually kind of go back to normal. But with him, they saved him turning into ashes and being blown away in the wind. But yeah, it's so, if you read about it
in pieces too, because it was like his foot. And then it was his hand. And then he like loses his hand and shit. And then finally he put it like, And then Peter Cushing right there's like, and then pushes him into the sunlight. I thought it was fucking great. He's like, my hand, his hand's gone. I was like, it's fucking great.
Yeah, and it's a two-phase effect because they show it and it's flesh-like, and then they show it and then it's ashes. But yeah, so Terrence Fisher evidently he suggested that he introduced the idea of the sexual element. I don't buy it. I think probably Lee walked in there with it because he said he had never seen it.
Right.
And then he read the book and he decided to bring sexual element to it. And it's the first example of what became quintessential, which is welcoming the bite. Instead of being victimized, it's a seduction. And that got elaborated upon over time. And without Christopher Lee in this movie, you don't have Anne Rice. You don't have Vampire the Masquerade. You don't have any of it without Lee making the decision to be seductive about this character.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Twilight, any of the shit that informs it. I mean,
we can obviously do Twilight.
We definitely do that Twilight, but I mean, the inspiration is so far-reaching.
Yeah,
bring that in. I mean, and who else but Christopher Lee? I mean, and it was funny because Ivy Gentry brings up Christopher Lee wanted to bite the men as well, but they wouldn't let him bite them on the neck. And I understand that for the time period. I get that the imagery of it, the optics probably wouldn't play on film. There's only so far they would allow these things to go. But I get Christopher Lee's instinct in that he is appealing to everyone. Everyone can be drawn in. And so with the Jonathan Harker, that would be brilliant. Where Jonathan Harker is, yes, I'm this upstanding guy, I'm here to kill Dracula. And then, instead of seducing his wife, but he himself is seduced by this and winds up getting killed and turned into a vampire. Then they have to turn around and he manages to kill the bride, but then they have to turn around and kill him. And because he fell prey to that seduction instead of being victimized. And I thought imagine how that would have played to go those routes. Where Lee's like, oh yes, I'll seduce any of you. I've seduced you as well. And then I was like, holy, he could seduce me anytime. So I mean,
and I've never even really thought about it until now. And since if you think about it, so he's talking about men and everything, and I guess you could read a bisexual element into it, but really, if you think about it, it's a seduction for him, but he's not seduced. This is about feeding, and this is about control, and you see that when people that victimize other people, like. A lot of times, it doesn't come down to gender. Like,
it's about power.
Victim, yeah, it's whoever. It's not a sexual act for them, but then the person that gets victimized, and it's sexual for them, they get used, and afterwards they suffer detrimental effects. But yeah, he's just, I mean, he's going around being a hoe. But it's odd. And then that's the thing too with you talk about Cushing. That is not your normal Van Helsing. Your normal Van Helsing is a short German guy that's kind of weird.
That's why I played. That's why I got to play him in the play. That's why that's why he cast me. It's kind of like, like that. So that's why I got to play him. I don't look at it like Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing is, especially at that time. Holy shit.
Yeah, they were like, and that's the point is he's like, why am I trying to do this? And he played it very much similar to himself. Obviously, not dead on himself. If you learn about him, he was either on set or he was at home with his wife. He loved being near his home. That's why he did a lot of these films, because he could do Amicus, who did, Tales from the Crypt and all of those. He could do short bits on those. He could do, I can't remember the name of it, but it's the British kind of equivalent of Broadway. And he could do Hammer films, and he always had work. He wasn't necessarily rich. He was well off from it, but there was always a job. But yeah, he made it into himself, and it's so interesting because I think so many people, if they're not watching horror, they get their introduction to him from Grand Moff Tarkin.
From Star Wars, from Star Wars. Yeah.
And then you go back and you watch, and like even into his older age, like he was still perceived as sexy as hell.
He was.
Yeah. And like that's not
class.
Him.
That's that gentlemanly class.
Yeah.
He was the guy who was always out there like that. Always, you always present your best, but never overbearing. A gentleman is never without his gloves, if necessary. That was what he presented. Everyone who worked with him always said that he was the quintessential British gentleman, always, in everything that he did.
Yeah.
Professional, calm demeanor, exacting, but fair. And I was like, I can't even, it's almost alien to try and perceive someone like that these days.
Yeah, he embraced everybody. Like, if you watch any of the behind the scenes, it's on YouTube of Amicus. There is one film, and I cannot remember the name of it. It escapes me. Some one of those things around the tip of my tongue, but it had Lee, Price, and Cushing. And Lee was only in there very shortly, but it was the three of them. But they've got Vincent Price and Peter Cushing talking behind the scenes, and you've got these two guys that are normally kind of menacing and everything. Just two older gentlemen discussing what's going on and how it's interesting and stuff, and it's crazy. But yeah, he basically said the hell with what's there. I can't work with that, and he made the Hammer Van Helsing, and it worked.
Awesome. I also want to say a quick hello. I saw a couple people jump in. Obviously, Omni Ouroboros, good to see you. Thanks so much for hanging out with us tonight. We do appreciate that. Dylan Prell as well says, gotta love Hammer and the bright red blood in those movies. I love that. And it didn't show it in the trailer, but that opening sequence where the camera's zooming in on the coffin of Dracula, it has Dracula's name on it, which is just awesome. And then the blood drips down onto the coffin itself. So a nice little inspired intro. You don't get to see that in the trailer, but it's in the film. It's how they open the film with that. And then, of course, also, hi, B. Blanco, who's been MIA for a while. Good to see you, B. Blanco. Appreciate you hanging out with us tonight. It's awesome to see you. But yeah, this is one of the I think one of the most important, if not the most important, Hammer film. While Hammer brought Universal Monsters back to the mainstream after Universal kind of dropped the ball and trying to do their, I think Universal fell prey to sequelitis and advancing technology. And that advancing telling the stories in those old ways was fantastic back in the 30s. But as time marched on, technology got better. More people could punch out films. You got audience fatigue from seeing monster movies all the time. So you want to see new stuff done in new, interesting ways, which is, movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon. Let's shoot the monster underwater, do interesting shit like that. And so, but audience fatigue sets in. There was kind of a lull there. I think Universal fell prey to sequelitis. Let's see how far we can push these things. And then eventually Hammer brought it back, shooting up there at Hammer House in England and able to utilize a set that they owned and utilize it for a number of different projects and keep reusing it to churn these out, low budget but high talent, to bring it and let the characters sell themselves while playing in these really, really well-constructed small environments. And I love that. And I think that was one of the reasons why, is because it was like Christopher Lee was talking about. It's like the ability to just go there and like literally drive around the corner of town, go to work, do these things, and then come right back and go back to your daily life. Makes it so much easier instead of having to fly everywhere. So love this particular one and what Lee brought to it. How Lee defined the fucking character and the monster for decades to come. I mean, till today, to the present.
It's a massive a chain reaction that set off, and it fed into everything. I mean, there's more of that than there was of the original, because there's a very different subtext to the Lugosi Dracula than there is to that. Like, Lugosi Dracula is gonna marry you, he's gonna woo you, he's gonna marry you. Lee, no, hit it and quit it.
Lugosi had Lugosi had that aristocratic predator. He sees things that character saw, like what the aristocracy saw. They saw people for their utility. He's like, this is what I want. This is the use that you can provide me, and that is what I want to attain. So it was about power, it was about control, and it was not just about feeding the curse of the bloodlust that he has. That's a part of it, but that just gives him more power. Whereas Lee is not so much Lee is more of the kind of like the animal that revels in that. This is who is kind of squared it. This is what I am. This is who I am. There is a beauty to it. There is a seduction to it, that leads us to scenes. I love that sequence when he walks in, when he corners her and she backs up in the room and he walks in, kicks the door shut behind him, is like, sets the tone for it. And I love what Lee did, that how he redefined it. And Lugosi, I think, was more true to the idea of it then, but these things take reinvention. and Lee was the guy to do it. What a fucking treasure we had in that man.
The same thing happened that happened to Universal happened to Hammer. And like it's so you have these beginning set of brilliant characters that you can work with. Dracula, Mummy, the Wolfman. There's not a classic novel about him, but he couples in there because he is a legend, okay, and everything. But then, like, they get into repetitiveness. I mean, you can't keep doing the same thing with the same characters, and the very nature of them makes it hard to change them. So then they, with Universal, they started creating new ones, like, what's her name, this Cheetah Girl and stuff. And the creature, like, some people don't realize the creature's an original. If you watch Monster Squad, they had to name it the Gill Man. They couldn't name it the creature. Yeah. But that's the only one of their inventions that really hit hard. And it just dies out. You got to reinvent, and everything has its time, and it dies out. And the same thing happened with Hammer. And they've tried to restart it. And what I think their problem with when they tried, because they called it Dark Universe on one. I forgot what the other one is. But they tried to restart it. And the problem is that they have zero respect for horror fans, and the fact that, like, if you touch our iconic characters, like, we've got room to fuck around. We've got room for funny stuff. But if you touch our iconic characters, you better damn well respect them, or you get shit from us. And then if you don't carry us, who cares if getting mainstream? Mainstream's not loyal. Horror fans are loyal. That's the people that are coming to your sequel, Hell or High Water. So
definitely. Raven Darkstar, good to see you. Thanks so much for popping in tonight. A little bit late, but it's okay. You can definitely catch it on the replay. We haven't done the air horn yet, so I promise you. And Raven Darkstar says, and who rubbed Aaron's head in a bowl of guacamole? No, it's not guacamole. He just got done doing battle with the creatures in Nilbog.
Fucking turning into Meg Mucklebones.
Indeed, I do. All right, but yes, fucking, Christopher Lee. If you haven't had a chance to watch this one, it's available on Amazon. It's where I watched it. You can probably find it in other places. But the first time, Lee's first outing as Dracula, the energy he brings, how he defined it. Think about that. This is the first time walking into. He knew of the story. Had never read the book, gets the part based on playing Frankenstein,
Didn't watch any of the movies either.
Didn't watch any of the movies, and he's like, and now I'm going to play Dracula. And he set the tone. Didn't even know, like 1958, 1957 when they shot this. Didn't even know what the effect it was going to have. And he brought it, All
right. So, CTA, which do you think is the best Dracula, Lee or Oldman? Ooh.
And the reason I bring this up, this is fascinating, is because for a lot of people, I might be inclined to say Lee, but for what Lee brought and what Lee's performances informed Gary in what he brought to Coppola's role. Gary also brought significant nuance that hadn't been touched on before for that one, because he took basically the identity of the character before the curse and the identity of the character after the curse. Mm-hmm. So, and he blended those two together very, very seamlessly. And even in the monster aspects of it, when he was the bat monster or the wolf monster or whatever was going on, I loved the sequence when he's got like the fucking green suit and like the green top hat and shit, and moments like that. But Oldman brought something to it as well. And it's fucking Gary Oldman.
That's the thing, like, I can't get into Oldman too much without, because, like I messaged you when we're talking about kind of subtext with Dracula and stuff, is that there was a very powerful subtext with Oldman and everything. But at the same time, it's like Lee, Oldman's a legendary actor. He's great, but Lee is family. And it's like, you don't fuck with family.
Right, so. I know. And apparently during production of Coppola's film, so during some of the more intense sexual sequences, apparently Gary was given direction, especially in the scene when he's in the monstrous form with Lucy in the hedge maze. So he's like doing that sequence. So apparently, because that wasn't Gary in the suit doing the thing, that was and so like doing the actual physical scene, but Gary was off camera. And there's multiple times in the film, multiple times during production, where he was instructed by Coppola to be off camera whispering shit. And a couple of times in scenes when he was far away, you could hear him that he was whispering things to his female companion in the scene in order to kind of like ramp up the energy or whatever to say things. And apparently, according to the actress who played Lucy in that film, some of the shit that he said is just unrepeatable for the sexual scenes that he did. Like he would come, and it was all ad-lib. Like he would come up with shit on the fly. Just trying to imagine Gary Oldman off camera, just kind of like, like just whispering like the most raunchy sexual shit you can imagine to like lend itself in this creepy kind of whisper.
That's the thing. Like if you know Gary Oldman though, it's no surprise at all. That dude, like there is no pretension to that guy. So because you've got like people who go method to get into the character and they suck to work with. And he's not like, he gets in it, he gets buried in it, but he's great to work with and he's funnier than hell.
Oh, right. Winona Ryder said that his intensity was like really, it was almost frightening at times for her.
Oh yeah.
Like it's kind of like it put her off, like there's some sequences that she later went on to say that even though they're friends now, but she said there were scenes that they did that she really didn't feel safe because his intensity as an actor and what he brings into it is just wild. So
yeah, well, and you say cut and it ramps down and it's off. He's not generally not walking around. So, well, you check the CTA answer. I'm gonna grab something over here that's very cool that I want to show you.
Cool. I see some werewolf is here. Good to see you. I see a bunch of people who are putting it up there. Let me see here. So we got a lot of love in the chat. Let me see. Cindy Sue says Aaron has never argued canon with a Star Trek or Star Wars fan. And B Blanco says, AA, I am digging the green hair, brother. So love for the green hair. Cindy Johnson, good to see you. Thanks so much for being here. Casey Cooper says his favorite Dracula is Al Lewis. Hilarious. Ivy Gentry says Lee. Christopher Lee. Tang Whistle says Oldman, hands down, always forever. Awesome. Casey Cooper says Max Schreck. Awesome. Okay.
Valid.
And very valid because Max Schreck knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
And let me see. Cindy Sue says Christopher Lee. Omnior's Bar says you're not going to mention Frank Langella. Love you, dude.
He could, but it didn't blow up. Like it just it didn't spawn off.
Some werewolf says Oldman is my fave. Awesome. Angel Rivera says Luke Evans from the new Dracula, from the more recent Dracula Untold. Interesting, because I thought Luke Evans did a fantastic Vlad. Vlad, I thought he was great, and of course Charles Dance. Charles Dance, one of the legends. Yeah, was great as the vampire, his maker, the vampire that was in the cave.
Oh, yeah.
But I thought he was fantastic. It was like Batman. You have actors who do great Bruce Waynes and actors who do great Batmans. Val Kilmer was a fantastic Bruce Wayne. But Michael Keaton was a brilliant Batman. Trying to find someone who can do both is very, very hard because of the mentalities of both. So trying to play both and blend that. Yeah, obviously Kevin Conroy is able to do the voice of both is just fantastic. But I think Luke Evans was fantastic as Vlad, as Vlad the Impaler. But seeing him as Count Dracula, the monster, it was almost like, what was it, like Dracula Year Zero?
Yeah, he hadn't aged into the menace because he still had things to live for and care about. The bloodlust hadn't swallowed him. So he was great at it. But so what I was grabbing is this, and it is beat to hell because I got it when I was 10. That is an American first edition Dracula by Bram Stoker.
Wow.
This thing was issued, and like I said, it's beat to hell because I read it so much. It was issued in 1897.
Holy shit.
That is one of my favorite things. It's on my horror shelf up there, and like I need to get it restored, but God, it's so pricey. But yeah, like this, I wish I'd been a little older when this fell in my possession. It wouldn't be so beat to hell. But yeah,
but hey,
American first edition,
legendary, very nice.
Yeah, I mean it's mine. I'm gonna keep it. As long as it's in readable shape, it's mine till I die. So
Raven Darker says, when did Oldman play Dracula? In 1992 in Francis Ford Coppola's adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. The one with Keanu Reeves is Jonathan Harker. Anthony Hopkins is as Van Helsing, Cary Elwes, and a number of Winona Ryder. So, but yeah, definitely, if you haven't seen it, definitely check that out. Regular Jeff says, I love Lee and Cushing in Horror Express. Telly Savalas was a great bonus. Hell fucking yeah. Casey Cooper says, Leslie Nielsen. Dracula Dead and Loving It is fucking classic, and obviously some great moments. Peter McNichol playing across from him is just, I rarely ever got to, it's one of those rare moments you see Peter McNichol like playing for the comedy as hard as he can, because he's a phenomenally talented actor, and seeing him play that up was just great. No, punish me! Punish me! I fucking love that shit. Ivy Gifter says Oldman is great, but he isn't Christopher Lee. Agreed with that. Left-Handed Jedi says Lee with Oldman a close second. Agree with that as well. So definitely let us know down in the comments below your favorite, or who you think was the best, Lee or Oldman, because I think that's a competition there. Tang Whistle says jelly as fuck right now over your book. Yeah, definitely. All right, so we got, let me see, we got one last one to dive into, and let's jump in, because I've been looking forward to talking about this. Great shit. Released May 8th, 1964. The last one we're going to talk about tonight. It's always a shame when it's the last one. We have The Evil of Frankenstein. Another fantastic Hammer film. Let's cue up the terror tube. Check out this trailer.
Rosemary? Are you okay?
Yeah, don't be named Rosemary in a horror movie. It's not going to go well.
Speaking of Anthony Hopkins.
Amazing movie.
It's fucking Ed Lauder, man.
Are you sure this is safe?
No.
What was that?
Oh, sure, if anything, we wouldn't be in a horror movie. Oh, it's Frankenstein.
You are interrupting my work. Your work. The work of the devil. Hans, please, Father. You can't. No!
The evil of Frankenstein. The evil of a man who created a monster by crude surgery and harnessed the tempestuous forces of nature to give it life. The evil of Frankenstein unleashed a monster that terrorized a whole community. Peter Cushing as the Baron, and Peter Woodthorpe as the ruthless Professor Zoltan, who fought the Baron for control of the monster.
Oh, he'll understand you, all right. He just won't obey you. That's all.
Such a
Duncan
good prick.
Lamont as the chief of police. Katie Wilde and Sanderels as two young people caught up in the evil of Frankenstein.
Love that. I love that scene. I really did.
Get out of his way, you fool! Go back and kill him.
Yes, that was the trailer for The Horror of Frankenstein, which was the third installment in Hammer's Frankenstein series. Directed by Freddie Francis, screenplay by John Elder, based off Victor Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, and starring Peter Cushing, Peter Woodthorpe, Duncan Lamont, and Sandor Ellis. The film follows Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein, who discovers that his original prototype creation is frozen in a cave. And with the help of his assistant, they build a fire and thaw the creature out and try to revive it, but it won't revive. So they enlist the efforts of the local, hard to describe what he is, but of Zandor.
He's a hypnotist, basically.
Yeah, hypnotist, whatever.
Mesmerist.
They bring in Zoltan. Yeah, they bring in Zoltan to help revive the monster, and Zoltan is able to successfully do this, but he compels the monster to only listen to him because he has his own intentions, because after getting ousted by the police, he's going to use the monster for his own nefarious purposes, for revenge. And, of course, a battle of wills ensues between Zandor and Frankenstein as to who will control the monster, leading to the destruction of all. A fantastic little piece. As far as the third one goes, the big thing that I think Somnambulist, thank you, Omnior, like Somnambulist, there was a number of things. It was kind of weird.
A Somnambulist is a sleepwalker, and I've smoked in my sleep. It's not cool. It's not a superpower.
So it's really, really fascinating, given that this is the third one in their franchise, and it kind of plays off as continuing the story beyond the original of Frankenstein bringing it to life, because at this point Frankenstein has a reputation. Obviously people know what he did, and nobody is a fan of him, and he has many, many detractors, and so he's basically trying to eke out his life in that. And I liked that sense of what Cushing brought to this one. You go for the performances, is that Peter Cushing as Frankenstein, and of course Peter Woodthorpe fucking eating the scenery as Zoltan. I thought he was fantastic. Plus, seeing those two character archetypes play off of one another, because even at his most destitute, Frankenstein is still the consummate gentleman. It's because it's Peter Cushing. It's what he brings to it. And then Zoltan, the kind of everyman, the blue collar versus white collar kind of idea there, and how the two of them clash, and how intelligence is not necessarily relegated to only the educated and elite, that those who would be cast aside are also quite intelligent, can be quite crafty and advantageous themselves. So I liked the character work in this one, even though the sets themselves, the design of the monster, the sets themselves were taken from previous work, so it's kind of rehashed at this point. The design of the monster a little bit more primitive, which is interesting because for those who haven't seen it, Daniel Radcliffe and James McAvoy did a movie called Victor, and that movie utilized this image for the Prometheus. So the whole the almost blocked face version of the creature, although it was more organic looking in that film because it was obviously a newer film. But that kind of endearing image of what Frankenstein would look like, the block-headed version with the angular features, kind of almost cobbled together, almost Gollum-like in its construction, lends of what Shelley was initially trying to envision as what the monster was. So I like Hammer's adherence to that, which kind of but this one you watch for the characters, what they bring to this, and it's this kind of continuing story of the Frankenstein mythos.
Yeah, so this is brilliant people doing amazing stuff with a bad source, bad product.
With almost nothing to work with, yeah.
Yeah, this started out, reading up on it, it started out as an episode of, I can't remember, Tales of Frankenstein, which is a really bad concept, because you cannot do episodic nature to something that ends so tragically. But it's directed by Freddie Francis, who is an absolute legend. He's been brought on to productions and saved them so many times. He directed a lot of the latter Amicus films. So he's amazing. The actors do a great job and stuff. And Zoltan and Frankenstein, they both have the same flaw, and it's their hubris. They don't see the creature as a person. Zoltan sees it as a tool. Frankenstein just sees it as an experiment. Neither sees it as a person, and that's one of the biggest flaws in all of the Frankenstein films, especially the original ones. You've got the townspeople fail to understand the scientific value of it. They're superstitious, and they decide to take down. Frankenstein doesn't see that there is an emotional importance to the fact that he's brought back life, and neither see the creature as a person. And it always ends tragically, and that's what happens here, except it's pitted between the two of them, and then the villagers and the police get involved. So it's a prime example of what I've talked about earlier, where they are trying to take the same characters and stretch, because we need another Frankenstein film. People like Frankenstein, and they retcon the hell out of it. They change it. The makeup is actually designed to look more like Universal, because early on, there were legal conflicts with Universal. That's why at the beginning of this, you see a Universal logos, because they had to have an agreement with Universal, and the agreement changed years later. So now they can do something more like the Universal version of Frankenstein, which kind of pissed off fans. I mean, they like the different one. Hammer is not Universal.
Right.
We watch Hammer films. Watch Hammer films. Universal.
You see Lee.
Universal
You've
films.
established Lee. Lee as completely differentiated from Lugosi's character. I mean, they took the character, did their own thing. At least bring something to that as far as the monster goes. You could do something a little bit different. You don't have to hang on, which cheapens it in my eyes. A little bit unoriginal in that respect. But hey, it is a business.
Yeah, and then so it's just, you can see that as it goes on, it starts to, they kind of, Hammer starts to dwindle, and it happens to everybody. It's just, it's the nature. It's not even just the nature of the business. It's nature things, good things in. But yeah, I mean, it's the producer pissing in the pool. You got some people who want to make a profit, and they just crank something out, and you bring in some talent and attach it to it, and they do the best they can with it. And it's not a bad movie. It's a good watch, but it's not going to be the powerful tragedy that other Frankenstein films are, because to a degree, it's like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? Because
I thought. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so if you watch, it takes place in Karlstadt, okay? And he's going back, because Karlstadt is his hometown. He's going back, and there's no continuity in the universe for Hammer. They don't interlace. The films that are sequels to one another from the same characters, those relate to one another, but you don't have an interlink of Dracula and Frankenstein stuff. But it's funny because Horror of Frankenstein, the main town that it takes place in after, they go back to hometown, it's Karlstadt, and as he's coming in, Frankenstein says, nothing ever happened to Karlstadt, and I'm like, that has got to be a reference to the fact that shit keeps going down in Karlstadt.
One thing I want to give some credit here for is because of all the actors who portrayed the monster. Because the monster, I mean, I understand that an actor might have a certain inclination to portray it a particular way, and sadly, the thing is it's either Karloff gets mimed or the character gets made into a parody, where it's just like it's just for comedic effect, which. Oh, sorry. I thought I might sneeze. And this one, obviously, Kiwi, the guy who portrayed the monster in this one was Kiwi Kingston, who was a 6'5" New Zealand wrestler who was brought in to portray this. And sadly, the man only has 2 films to his name. He did this one, Evil of Frankenstein in 1964, and then he did Hysteria in 1965. Only 2 movies, and both of them were Hammer films. So whereas Evil Frankenstein was Hammer and Universal, and then Hysteria was Hammer and MGM, the only 2 movies he ever got to his name. And so unknown actor came along, got to portray Frankenstein, a legendary monster, one time. I thought did fairly well. I want to give some credit to that guy, because I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk about him and what he brought to it. I think it was because he mimed him a little bit. He mimed Karloff a little too much. But I kind of blame the director for that. In that, or maybe even the studio, it's kind of like they're not going for something to try and reinvent. They're just trying to kind of like add to it. That's why the movie, at times, despite its kind of dignity in the beginning and the strength of Cushing and the other actors that are there, despite that, it really ultimately kind of feels like a cash grab. Just kind of like, we're putting this out because we've got the ability to make it. We've got a script. We got to run with it. Let's put this thing out until we can get to our next thing. One of those filler movies that you drop down that a studio will release in order to try and get the money to get towards the next thing that they're going to do. So it would, people weren't really clamoring for a third film, for a third drop. It wasn't like it had that great of interest then. People were more interested in, Wolfman, true crime inspired stuff, Dracula, but Frankenstein, it's kind of, the same story over and over and over again, which is why they tried to add to it in this particular one. So yeah, definitely a bunch of really extremely talented individuals, I think, at the mercy of Hammer. And so despite the enjoyable nature of the film and watching the actors. Don't get me wrong. Watch it for the performances because they're fantastic. You know, no one, Peter Cushing, legend at this point, has been doing it numerous times. He knows how to bring it. And everything is, all the elements are there. But you're going to get that sensation that Hammer, this may have been a slight misstep for them. One of their rare missteps. Just kind of like, you don't want your favorite studios putting out movies just because they can.
Yeah.
You want them putting out movies because people want them. And
it's not a bad movie. It's not unenjoyable. It's fun to watch, but at the same time, it's like there's a certain loyalty to the characters, and it's just like don't treat them like that. Like, they're not hookers. You can't just pay them and do whatever you want to them. But yeah, what I laughed, I had to laugh my ass off though, because he only eats raw red meat. And I'm like, I like raw red meat. Like, you know, just hit that thing on the flame for a second so it doesn't kill me, and then give it to me. But then he gets drunk. He starts drinking wine, and I'm like, he's only eating meat, drinking red wine, and then he attacks a woman. I'm like, he's gone red pill. That's the problem.
Fuck yeah.
They should have. They got to a point, like, even if you don't want to do, like, in Penny Dreadful, the talking Frankenstein, I can't even remember his name, the first creature in Penny Dreadful.
Oh shit, yeah. Son of a bitch. Because he was fucking phenomenal.
Brilliant. They fleshed him out as an intelligent creature. They did something that was very similar to Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, where he's intelligent, but he was a very sensitive individual, yet also to a degree, when it came to a kind of sociopathic, they could have fleshed out the creature a little more. And
Rory
they would have
Kinnear.
been better off. Yeah.
Rory Kinnear was who played that, and he was magnificent as the initial creation.
Yeah, and everybody, all right, I'm putting my 2 cents down. This everybody's like, the monster's not Frankenstein; it's a doctor. It's his child. Therefore, it is a Frankenstein. So shut up with that damn trivia.
Oh man! So, given this, what I found really kind of interesting in this one is because, and I had to ask, and I want to ask the audience, is that given the nature of the character, that we got 2 movies tonight that had Peter Cushing in them, and in the first one, Peter Cushing was playing Van Helsing, you know, the hero of the inspiration of many heroes afterwards. So he's playing Abraham Van Helsing. In this one, he is playing Dr. Frankenstein. One is a hero and one is a villain. Now, Peter Cushing, a remarkably talented actor who could do anything that he lent himself to. So my curiosity is this, and I wanted to ask the audience, given what we got 2 different types of performances from Peter Cushing, playing 2 different, obviously a protagonist and an antagonist, what is your favorite? What do you prefer seeing Peter Cushing as? A villain or a hero? So Peter Cushing as a villain or a hero, which one is your favorite? Which one do you think he does best? You know, I know which ones are more fun. Peter Cushing as a villain is always super fun, you know, because that gentlemanly flair as the bad guy is always fantastic. So, but what do you out there who are listening, what do you think? Villain or hero? Peter Cushing is a villain or Peter Cushing is a hero? Which one do you prefer? Or which one do you think he does best? What about you?
That's the thing in this. He's like, he's not a complete villain. He's just his own foil is the problem. He doesn't see, like, stop doing this. But, like, it's so amazing because he goes up to the bedroom, like I was talking about earlier. Like, as he gets older, it doesn't change. He's still a sex symbol because he goes up into that bedroom and, like, the Burgermeister or whatever. Like, I cannot remember the rank. I think
the Burgomaster.
Yeah, and he takes his wife is up there, and he's going out the window with the blankets, and, like, he just, like, gives her that eyebrow wave and goes over, and she's interested in him, and I'm like, dude, like, the fucking guy had swagger, like, even at that age. But yeah, no, like, villains are always just more interesting, and that's the thing too, is like, so you get to play with villains so much more. There's so many rules for heroes. The villains, you can play around with them. Like, they could be just evil, but most of them, they don't see themselves as a villain.
That's the key. I was just thinking that Cushing was one of those actors who recognized that the villain believes they are the hero in their own story.
Yeah.
Everyone is the hero in their own story. So even the villain in the story believes they are the hero and that they are working towards a greater good for either themselves or their loved ones or the world or whatever. And it's the hubris that eventually overtakes them, which is what is ultimately Frankenstein's downfall. Oh, that I'm almost reminded of the Venture Brothers. Oh, I never should have played God. But I love that Cushing always brought that to except for Grand Moff Tarkin. Well, that was just, but he's just magnificent. But I love that. I enjoy the villains as well because you can play that additional depth, whereas the hero is often relegated. There's no gray areas for the hero, especially in that time period. The hero is, white hat, coming in to save the day. But the villain, you could be malleable, and I always enjoyed that. So I see a lot of love in the live chat for villains.
Yeah,
for
Peter,
Best,
well, amongst villains too, the best villains are played by good people, because people who are bad, the actors in Hollywood or wherever who are jerks, don't get what evil is. They do wrong things and they don't understand why it's wrong, so they can't grab onto it and lay into it the way they should. So like the best villains are always played by the nicest people, which is kind of terrifying sometimes, because you got Robin Williams. Oh God, what was that one? The one up in Alaska where he's a serial killer.
Identity. Was it Identity? Was it Christopher Nolan's Identity? I think it was Insomnia.
No, it was Insomnia. Yeah,
Insomnia. That was it, with him and Al Pacino.
Yeah, and like you're just like, I will never sleep again. This is a perfect time.
1 hour photo is the one that got me.
Oh yeah.
God. Yes, thank you, Travis Brown, for 1 hour photo. It was because you never really know somebody and what's bubbling behind the persona that you take for granted every single day. So, and how he nailed that. It's kind of like, fuck. And now, knowing what we know now.
Yeah.
And
dude, what he was dealing with.
That 1 hour photo hits differently.
Yeah. He was a badass for having lived as long. People, you can say what you want to about suicide, him committing it. To live as long as he did with the medical condition he had makes him one hardcore badass. But yeah, it's the same thing. Everybody on the news always, he seemed so normal. He didn't do anything. Well, of course he seemed normal. He's got 58 bodies in his basement. He's not going to be like, look at me. Don't trust normal people.
Yeah, a lot of love for 1 hour photo in there. And Bruno says it's why Gary Oldman plays the best villains. Absolutely does, dude. Fucking The Professional. Son of a bitch, man. That's a bad guy. That's like, I love Mozart. I love Mozart. I fucking love that. I love that role. Stanwich, I think was what his name. Stansfield was his role in The Professional. Tango Whistle CBM says, nice people suppress a lot of negative impulses. They understand how to be evil and they choose not to be.
Yeah. And a lot of times they've had people be evil to them and they're just like, well, let's engage in some catharsis here.
Yeah. Mike 71, good to see you. And Mike 71, I think in reference to Peter Cushing, play I gotta play. And Peter Cushing definitely was that was a player who had to play. Absolutely.
Dude, he was so loyal and loving to his wife and everything, but there's nothing out there about him being unfaithful. But like if he had been, dear God, the entire countryside.
All right, so that brings us to the favorite portion of the show. I know everybody loves it. It is, of course, that special time. Aaron, what time is it?
Oh God, it's time for trivia. I'm gonna smuggle in a new sound effect. I swear to God.
It is trivia time. So, for those of you in the live chat right now, be the first person to get the correct answer to this upcoming trivia question in the live chat, and you will win a special item from the Week in Horror store. And remember, for those of you who have won something, put up a picture and show us what you won. Show us your prizes in the Show Your Swag channel, the Show Your Swag section on the Week in Horror Discord. Love seeing those pictures there. We have some really, really good ones, and you can see those. Yeah, the new coffee mugs, the No Lives Matter with Michael Myers coffee mugs. They look fantastic. And I can't wait to see what the camping mug, the steel camping mug that's Jason themed. I can't wait.
Damn.
It's a Jason themed steel camping mug with No Lives Matter on it as well, with machetes and a mask and everything. That I designed the image myself, and so I did put that up on Teespring. So I can't wait to see what those look like, because I think a couple people have won some. So let us know what those look like. But get those pictures up in the Show Your Swag on the Discord. Link is in the description. So, Aaron, you're back making your triumphant return. So why don't you give them their trivia question?
All right. And I actually know some stuff about this that we can talk about afterwards. I won't drag on too long now. All right. Here we go. Which classic Universal monster did Hammer Horror adapt first? So which classic Universal monster did Hammer Horror adapt first? I got the live chat pulled up. We'll see who bangs it in first.
Who's got it? Who's got it? You gotta wonder if somebody will guess it or if somebody's actually looking it up, or somebody just knows it off the top of their head. Yep, bam! There it is.
Dylan Prell.
Dylan Prell.
Frankenstein. Yeah.
Well done, Dylan. Yes, the answer was Frankenstein. So Frankenstein was the first universe, not the first horror film they ever did, because that was the Quatermass Experiment. Yeah. But the first Universal horror monster that they adapted was, of course, Frankenstein. Omnior's Bar said Dracula, close. That was actually number 2. And
they had to negotiate the hell out of him with Universal, which is the only reason he took so long for Horror of Dracula to get out.
Right. And Left-Handed Jedi got it as well, as in Casey Cooper said Frankenstein. There's a lot of Dracula guesses in there. But yeah, Dracula was a lot tougher to get other than Frankenstein, which Frankenstein was there first. And Raven Dark said, I haven't gotten my last one yet, JL. It should be coming shortly. Let me look into that, Raven. Let me look into that and see what's going on with the shipping. So if I find something, I'll message you. But look for it shortly. I promise it should be getting to you. So, but yes, congratulations, Dylan. Dylan Prell, and I think this is the first time Dylan has won something on the show
that I've seen. Yeah, so nice.
All right, Dylan, I've got your name down. So if we do not have, I don't think we have your shipping details. So if you want to email this to us at weekinhorror@gmail.com, or you can message me directly via the Discord. Just send me a private message with your shipping, your up-to-date shipping details. We will get that printed and shipped to you ASAP. So weekinhorror@gmail.com. Or at the Discord. You can just message me directly. So get this to us. We'll get it out for you. So what did you have, Aaron?
So the really cool thing, because I'm a huge fan of Amicus. Like, I've gone on about them, which part of that's because I love Tales from the Crypt, and they did a lot of adaptations from them. But what's crazy is they went to Hammer with the idea for a Frankenstein movie. Hammer turned them down, and they went their own route, and Hammer ended up dropping Frankenstein. So, like, the guys from over at Amicus are just like, son of a bitch.
That's fucking sweet. Yeah, strike while the iron is hot. Yeah. All right, and that, Horror Fiends, is going to conclude this episode of the Week in Horror podcast. Only 18 more episodes left in this season. Can you believe it?
Yeah, because I'm aging like lightning.
Thank you all so much for joining us. We truly hope you enjoyed the show. And if you did, smash that like and subscribe button and be sure to hit that bell so you never miss a future episode. Join us next week when we look back at the suburban Satanism horror Night Visitor, the bonkers revenge slasher Maniac Cop, the mad scientist revenge horror The Mad Monster, and the psychological identity horror Pin. Be sure to check out Josh Olsen's store at badsamurai.store. He does all the awesome artwork you see splattered all over our merchandise, which you can find over at our Teespring. Link is in the description. And for more from Week in Horror, check out all the stuff we have down below. Follow us on the socials for your daily splatter, your daily horror recommendation. Join us on our Discord for watch parties, big announcements, all kinds of horror shenanigans, and support the show through channel memberships here by joining the Army of the Dead, Super Chats, PayPal, or even our Patreon, which you can join for as little as $1 a month to support the show. Get your name on the banner down below and attached to all of the productions that we do behind the scenes, like Nail Gun and 11 to 6 and the stuff that we have coming up we can't talk about yet. So what are you waiting for? Join us! As always, I want to thank each and every single one of you for being the greatest audience a horror film podcast could possibly have. I am JL.
I'm Aaron, and it is damn good to be back.
Fucking A. We will see you all next week. And as always, stay scared.
Bye-bye.